Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow Room. And we're working our way through my Tchaikovsky collection, which is really ample. We're on set number 2 of Tchaikovsky stuff as we work our way backwards through the alphabet. And these are, I think, mostly symphony performances or recordings. There's some really cool stuff here, I have to tell you. There really is. First, let's just get right to it. The Pathétique Symphony and Prokofiev's Classical Symphony with Giulini. Los Angeles Philharmonic and the Tchaikovsky. It's a fairly slowish and sensitive, it's Giulini. You either like it or you don't. And a lot of his LA stuff was kind of on the soggy side. It was slow and heavy, but sometimes so beautiful and often very powerful. And this is one of those. I think when it came out, a lot of people found it just too slow. Then Bernstein's came out, and Giulini seemed like he was running running a sprint compared to Bernstein, who was doing a marathon. I mean, the finale's like 10 minutes long. Bernstein's was like, 16 or something? I don't know. And then we've got the Classical Symphony, a delicious performance with the Chicago Symphony on DG. All of this, of course, was re-released in the big Giulini box. So there were boxes. Tchaik Pathétique, the Nutcracker Suite with Toscanini. It's always fun to listen to Toscanini. I mean, the Tchaik Pathétique is splendid. It's typically Toscanini. It's passionate. It's linear. It's not self-indulgent in any way. The Nutcracker Suite is kind of odd. It's kind of like, the Knoppertsbusch Nutcracker Suite. Not that it sounds like Knoppertsbusch, but it was a weird one. It has some strange balances and emphases, but, he got through it. So what can you say? Tchaik 4 and Capriccio Italien, Bernstein Century. Now, this is his first Tchaik 4, the 1958 one. The remake was better. It was more exciting. I think it was much more exciting, and his interpretation changed considerably. This one is actually kind of sleepy. It really is, but it was better recorded than the remake. The remake was done in the bad-sounding Avery Fisher Hall, I think. It was just awful. Engineering was awful. But this is also just not a very exciting performance. The Capriccio Italien, on the other hand, is terrific. I mean, Bernstein was always aces when it came to vulgar orchestral showpiece type things. And that's certainly one. Speaking of Bernstein's Pathétique, here it is. Here it is, the Deutsche Grammophon Pathétique remake with a 22-minute first movement. Giulini was 18. And a 17-minute and 12-second last movement. Giulini's is 10. I mean, this was something. This is Bernstein himself said it's about as far out as you can go and still make it back. And boy, did he ever. I thought this was a wonderful performance. This was one of the first reviews I ever wrote for High Fidelity magazine. And I tried to explain why I thought it was a great performance, why Bernstein had rethought the piece and attempted to balance out the very, very top-heavy, structure of the work with its very long first movement and then 3 rather short ones afterwards. And he tried to give it that kind of balance. It wasn't just all about emoting. It was about structure and form. And I wrote this thing, and Bernstein had his secretary write back to the editor at High Fidelity saying that I had understood what he was trying to do. And that really made me feel good because I was a budding critic writing for a major magazine for the first time. This was in 1987 that this thing came out. And so I cherish this recording. I really do. It meant a lot to me. Then we have Tchaik 4 with Romeo and Juliet. The Tchaik 4 is The Cell on Decca in London, and it's part of this Penguin Classics series. Oh, goodness gracious. And the Penguin Guide to Compact Discs is the definitive guide to classical music. Well, not anymore, I hate to say. This was never released while Cell was alive because he refused to approve it. And I understand why. It doesn't have the kind of sharpness and discipline that he later achieved in Cleveland and that probably would have been more typical of his interpretation. Because if you compare this to his Cleveland Fifth, then it's an entirely different story. But it's still a very exciting performance. It's a very good performance. So I mean, everyone was happy when it came out. And we've got the Romeo and Juliet with Karajan in Vienna, which is, of course, in that Carillon box we just talked about, the Carillon Decca recordings. And then, Romantic Russia. Early Schulte. This is fascinating. From 1966, you get a really zippy Ruslan and Ludmila and Mussorgsky Chovaschina Prelude, Night on Bald Mountain, Prince Igor Overture and Polovtsian dances, and the Tchaikovsky Little Russian Symphony. Everything is with the London Symphony except for the Little Russian, which is the Paris Conservatoire Orchestra, which I just love. Even when Schulte is sort of, chopping them to bits. It's actually an exciting Tchaik too. It really is. The whole disc is exciting. It's strangely recorded. It's a Kingsway Hall, John Culshaw job. And those are supposed to be wonderful, right? But it's very dry and bony sounding. It really is. I mean, these strings might as well not have shown up. But the Tchaik 2 is better, and it's a fun disc. It really is. Next, we already talked about in this pile of stuff, the Ozawa Swan Lake, which was splendid. And after that, he did the Nutcracker. Equally well, I might add. A beautiful performance of the Nutcracker with a lovely Romeo and Juliet from his early days with the San Francisco Symphony. Ozawa did a lot of Tchaikovsky. This also has the Sleeping Beauty suite, by the way. And his Tchaikovsky got better as he got older, because I think in his youth, he was more of a contemporary music, not emotional type. He was a little afraid to let go. And as he matured, he got more willing to, indulge the, emotional excess, which we all know and love from Tchaikovsky. But the Nutcracker doesn't have any emotional excess. It's all just elegance and grace and beauty, and that's what this is. So there's that. Then we've got Tchaikovsky's 4, 5, and 6 with Claudio Abbado, and the Vienna Phil and the London Symphony in 5, and the Vienna Phil in 4 and 6. And these are very good performances. His fourth was particularly lovely. I mean, I remember the fourth when it came out, and it had a lot of wonderful touches that didn't become mannered and weren't as micromanaged as he later became. But they're 3 very good performances. There's so much good Tchaikovsky out there. I mean, there's just tons of it. Everybody was doing it back in those days. They knew how. Now they don't. We've talked about that on and on, about how hard it is now to get really powerful or compelling Tchaikovsky, because the young conductors today, they just don't seem to be comfortable with the aesthetic. And so it's a real issue. So we have one more pile for this stuff. Oh my God. Okay, what do we got here? Oh, the Nutcracker, Swan Lake, and Sleeping Beauty suites with Ernest Ansermet. I don't understand the attractions. I mean, they're terrible, but, Tchaikovsky 6 and Swan Lake with Saito Keenan and Ozawa. Again, his Saito Keenan stuff was on an entirely different, track from some of his Boston Symphony recordings, particularly the earlier ones. He, at the end of his career in Boston, everybody was dumping on him, and they all apparently were told that he and the orchestra hated each other, and we heard all this stuff going back and forth. And then he had a real second wind in Japan with this orchestra, which plays splendidly. It's beautiful. We've got the Swan Lake Suite. So yeah, nice. Tchaikovsky and Dvorak violin concertos with Nathan Milstein. This is great. This is wonderful. The Dvorak is with Antal Dorati in the Minneapolis Symphony, and the Tchaikovsky is with Charles Munch. These are monos on RCA. One of the sort of outliers in the Milstein discography, because most of his stuff was on EMI or HMV or whatever you want to call it. Now it's Warner, and we really need a Milstein box, a seriously complete Milstein box from those people. But this is just splendid. And he was doing the Dvorak concerto at a time when very few people outside the Czech lands were. And he does it really well. He really gets the piece. I mean, the finale is the quickest movement, which is what you want in this. It dances. It's terrific. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Tchaikovsky 6 with Kirov and Gergiev with Romeo and Juliet. Now, Gergiev had a real feel for this piece. He really did. He would just go nuts in the development section, and they would scream and yell and blast all over the place. It was hair-raisingly vulgar and just peeling the paint off of the ceiling. It was just terrific. This is a good performance. It really is a very good performance. But I also was able to get my hands on this thing. This is a CDR of Gergiev doing the Pathétique live from the Musikverein with the Vienna Phil in 1999. And this is just insane. His tempi are slower than Giulini's, by the way. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's an air raid siren going off. It's so powerful and gripping, and it's amazing, just amazing. And it's coupled with a Carillon Live Berlin 1988 Brahms Third for reasons I have no idea. I mean, it's a good Brahms Third, but you know. Then we've got Ozawa again doing Tchaik 4 and the Capriccio Espagnol with Saito Keenan. Same remarks apply as previously. We don't need to waste more time over it. Then we've got the Rojdetvensky Bolshoi Nutcracker. It's always fun to have a Russian version, you know, with some of those screechy sonorities and that garish melodia recording. This is in stereo, or at least they say it is. You never really know with these people. And let's see, what was it recorded? 1961. So it's in very scruffy stereo, as I recall. The Nutcracker, again, and Suites for Orchestra 3 and 4 with the Concerto and Antal Dorati and the New Philharmonia. Absolutely gorgeously played. A little dryly recorded, I think, perhaps. And some people prefer Dorati's earlier Nutcracker with the London Symphony on Mercury Living Presence, and I can understand that. I really can. But you know, for sumptuousness and glitter, this is hard to beat. It really is. We have so many Nutcrackers. Then we have the Snow Maiden Complete Incidental Music on Naxos with the Moscow Symphony Orchestra and Igor Golovchin. People do not know the Snow Maiden Incidental Music. People know Rimsky-Korsakov's Snow Maiden, which is a whole different kettle of beans. So this is fun to have. Naxos did some unusual Tchaikovsky, and that was very kind of them, because otherwise we wouldn't hear it at all. Then we've got Vovka Ashkenazi, piano, and Richard Stamper and Christine Jackson, violin and cello respectively, doing the Tchaikovsky Trio, Opus 50. The Tchaikovsky Trio, in case you don't know it, is monstrous. It's absolutely monstrous. It has a 17-minute elegiaco first movement, then a theme and variations that last 20 minutes, and then a finale and coda to the theme and variations, which lasts another 11. And by the time this sucker is over, you spend about 50 minutes on a big, huge memorial. It was a memorial for like one of the Rubinsteins or someone like that. And it's enormous, and it's long. And this is a very good performance of it, but it takes some getting used to, let's be honest. It's coupled with the Orensky Piano Trio Opus 32, which is a lovely work that nobody knows, and 79 minutes worth of music on one disc. It's a good deal on Naxos. So there you have it, my friends, a pile more of Tchaikovsky. Keep on listening, and thank you for joining me. Take care.